Hello, everybody. My name is Eric D. Johnson, also known as BrightShine, right here in the city, Memphis, in the county, State of Tennessee. Today is Sunday afternoon, March the 10th, 2024, and the time is 12:32 p.m. First, say thank you to my family, my support for you, continue to keep myself employed in Memphis, tri-state area, and continue to further my education. More work out on I continue to pursue my social business and be administrator. Contrary to my plan, time take a break and go to school in the very near future. I'm gonna go back to my work out on I continue to pursue my social business and be administrator. Contrary to my. Now, what I'm gonna do right now, I'm gonna start my Facebook Live. Hello, everybody. My name is Eric D. Johnson, also known as BrightShine, right here in the city of Memphis, in the county, State of Tennessee. Today's date is Sunday afternoon, March the 10th, 2024. The time is 12:34 p.m. First, say thank you to my family, my support for you. Continue to support, continue to keep myself employed in Memphis, tri-state area, continue to further my education, more work out online, continue to pursue my social research, being administrative, contrary to my present time going. I took a break going to school in the very near future. I'm going to go back to Monroe College online and continue to pursue my social media and be administrative, contrary to my. Now, what you see in front of you is anti-gang, anti-Gnostic, anti-Haze. Also, adversus races, translated meaning against heresy. Saint Irenaeus, the Bishop of Lyons, together with Saint Ignatius, the Bishop of Antioch. They wrote a 5-volume book refuting Gnosticism, proving that Gnosticism was a heresy. Also, Saint Athanasius, the Bishop of Alexandria, in the year 367 AD, in his 39th festal letter, Easter letter, banned all non-Christian writing. Saint Athanasius, the Bishop of Alexandria, together with all the other bishops in the Catholic Church, they went around and collected all that Gnostic theologian writing, and they destroyed it. A person or persons took some copies of that Gnostic theologian writing, wrapped it in some papyrus paper, and put it in a jar and buried it in Nagmata, Egypt. In 1945, in Nagmata, Egypt, a little farm boy was outside playing and found that jar containing that Gnostic theologian writing that was wrapped in some papyrus paper. The little farm boy gave what he found to his father, who was a farmer, and eventually the scholars at the colleges and universities all around the world, the people in academia, the sororities and the fraternities, the sohos and the frat bitches, they found out about it. And ever since then, they have been using and misusing the Nag Hammadi Library to be self-destructive and destructive. They trying to destroy wildlife, nature, and the environment. Trying to destroy the North and South Pole. Trying to go out in outer space, trying to do the same thing. Also, Saint Epiphanius of Salome, the Bishop of Cyprus, wrote a 3-volume book titled Panarium Greek, Panarium in Latin, translated mean bread basket. The scholars at the college and university around the world have said that Saint Epiphanius of Salome, Bishop of Cyprus, 3-volume book is also adversus races, against heresies. the Almighty Conservative Vice Lord, and Vice Lord, Four Corner Hustle, the Almighty Black Prince Stone, the Almighty Mickey Cole, Stone, Kraken, the Almighty Black Disciple, Poppin', the Almighty Bluefin, Black Disciple, the Black Disciple, the Lord Stone Disciple, the Gangster Disciple Killer, GDK, Glazed Donut Killer, GDK, 7-Eleven, G Killer, Goofy. Like I say, it's Sunday afternoon, March the 10th, 2024. And we know that the time went forward. You know, in spring, it's spring forward, and the fall, it falls back. And so, you know, I ain't going to be long. I'm not going to even be long on my video today. But I still wanted to make my video probably about an hour or whatever. But the point is this. When I make my video, it's an intended purpose. Whatever you thought you got away with, trying to lie and trying to victimize men, women, and children, I'm not going to sit idly by. Because I love my mama, love my dad, love my brothers, you know what I'm saying? Love other family members, love my granddad and my grandma. And going around trying to lie about religion to victimize men, women, and children. There ain't no such thing as no Gnosticism. I'm against Gnostics. Oh. As I stated earlier, I'm going to restate, I'm going to say it again. You tried to lie. You tried to go behind other people's back, lying about religion. And going around claiming that Gnosticism was a religion. Well, you can make up whatever you want. There's a lot of religions in the world. As you know, as they said, there's 4 religions. Monotheism, polytheism, animism, and atheism. There's only 4. And we're not finna go into that. What's a religion? If you want to know what a religion is, get yourself enrolled in college or at the university and pass the ACT, SAT test, and you can get in the theology and religious studies class. That way you can learn instead of standing out on the street corner, on the street running your mouth, or talking about you watched a YouTube video or something like that, or you read a newspaper or something. You heard somebody stand on the street corner running their mouth. But they tried to lie about Gnosticism, being specific. We already know about all this esoteric and exoteric. Talking about some esoteric is, inside, internal, within. And then you had the opposite, exoteric, outside, external, without. And then you got all these different, practices up under esoteric or whatever, or classified as being esoteric. And then you got all this other stuff they classify as being exoteric. And so when it comes down to Gnosticism, they class that as being esoteric. Right along with all that other like spiritism and hermetism and they'll say Neoplatonism and all that stuff about Freemasonry and the Rosicrucians, supposed to be esoteric. And then the Age of Enlightenment and New Age, Theosophy and Anthroposophy, all that supposed, the occult, all that supposed to be esoteric. The Kabbalah, they're supposed to be esoteric. They're supposed to be esoteric. But all this stuff about Freemasonry for a long time, and still even today, Freemasonry is still very prevalent around around the world. They just spread it all around the world through war, through violence. Trying to impose this esoteric upon any and everybody through violence. Just like here in the United States of America, you had people came from Europe, majority were Protestant. First the Protestants came over. Now we're not going to leave. No, I'm not negating the explorers from Spain and Portugal. It was small amounts of explorers. And then when you talk about the Caribbean, you talk about Mexico, and, the New World, how explorers from Spain and Portugal, Italy and things of this nature, the explorers, the Vikings, various explorers. Then you had these small groups of people that came behind the explorers. What we know about Mexico, Central and South America, we know about the Caribbean. But like I said, when it comes to the New World, when we talk about the Protestants who came over after the Reformation, the Catholic Reformation, and so the Protestants came over, and when they came over, they brought all this, Freemasonry with them, all this esoteric stuff with them. They brought it with them. And then we get into the slave trade, the Arab slave trade, the East African slave trade, the East African Arab slave trade. And then we get into the West African or transatlantic slave trade. You understand? And so people coming to America, and then you imposed all this Freemasonry on people who was really slaves. Who were slaves. And all up there in Massachusetts, we know about the Prince Hall Freemasons. We know about the Prince Hall Freemasons. And so this guy, Prince Hall, look, I'm not going to spend no time. Go watch a YouTube video. Or better yet, go online. You can go to Wikipedia. You can look up Prince Hall and all that. Or you can just watch a YouTube video and you can find out about all the Prince Hall Freemasons or about Freemasons. But being specific, the Prince Hall Freemasons were blacks. This guy named Prince Hall was affiliated with, because there was some Freemasons already here in America, but this particular guy, Prince Hall, black guy, African slave, living in Massachusetts, this person was affiliated with the Freemasons all the way over there in England, in Scotland, Ireland, somewhere over there. And the rest, like I said, you can go watch a YouTube video and you can find out about the Prince Hall Masons. Or you can go online, you can go to Wikipedia or online. The information is there, Just like the Bolay Society came right behind the Prince Hall Masons, but that's who did it. Just like the Bolay Society. What they call it, Omega Psi Phi, the first black fraternity. You can go watch a YouTube video and you can find out about Omega Psi Phi or the Bolay Society. You can find a small group of black / African American men, about 9 or 10 of them, about 15 of them at the most. It was a small group of men. And they started it. They were Freemasons, it's all that stuff ain't nothing but Freemasonry. And then when you talk about the Divine Nine, it's gonna be the same thing. Alpha, was it Alpha, Kappa Alpha? The first black fraternity but it really started at what? Cornell University. Alpha, Phi Alpha, whatever it's called, But like I said, you can go watch a YouTube video. And you can find out about the first fraternity that they started, because see, that's where it came from. They was at Cornell. It was some black students, black men. They was at Cornell University. They started Alpha Kappa, whatever. Go watch a YouTube. You can watch a YouTube video, or you can go, Wikipedia, or whatever. Google. You can Google it. And so on and so forth. The Divine Nine. They'll give you the whole history on, because it's all Freemasonry. It's all Freemasonry. It's all Freemasonry. It's the Bolay Society and all. It's all Freemasonry. Just like during the Civil War, you had the North and the South, but then after the Civil War, some ex-Confederate soldiers who were Freemasons. They were Freemasons. The Ku Klux Klan. They started the Ku Klux Klan. They were Freemasons. Then they went around terrorizing black / African Americans after the Civil War in the formerly Confederate States. That's mainly where they was concentrated in the former Confederate States down south, terrorizing the former slaves. But they were Freemasons. The Ku Klux Klan were Freemasons. They were Freemasons. Now, later on, instead of just being in the South, because you had black / African American living in the northern part, some Ku Klux Klan would try to make that, but racism was all over America. So, but the Ku Klux Klan mainly, they were concentrated mainly in the South. in the former Confederate States, where the black / African Americans were free now. And so they were terrorizing black / African Americans. And so, like I said, you tried to lie about religion. See, all this stuff about esoteric, see, this is what it means. All this time you've been pushing this Freemasonry and this esoteric. All this time they've been pushing it, in the society. They've been pushing this esoteric, mainly the Freemasons. Not saying that it wasn't no Rosicrucians or it wasn't no, others like the Kabbalah. Not saying that it wasn't no Kabbalists around. Kabbalists or whatever you want to call them. But it was mainly the Freemasons. And now that Gnostic stuff has been around a long time. But trying to push it amongst the whites, when the whites were mostly educated, they were more educated. They couldn't push it like that. They couldn't, you couldn't push it. So it was mostly gangster, mobster, being violent. So it wasn't no need for you to worry about. Because like I say, they were pushing that Freemasonry. And they were pushing it. But then they were pushing it amongst the black / African, like this Prince Hall Freemason. Prince Hall Freemason was pretty, if you go around, and when you go into history, you try to see if there was some else. But then the Freemasons, and then this Prince Hall Freemason, it was pretty prevalent. It's pretty, even the Bole Society, even amongst the, when the Divine Nine, the Prince Hall Freemasons are pretty prevalent. That, it was pretty prevalent. It ain't no another influence. That's what I'm saying. The influence is Prince Hall Freemasonry. That's what's been pushed for so long. Now later on, the whites, just like the Shriners or something like that, the Elks, stuff like that. But it was mostly the whites started this stuff. And then, you had blacks that were, black / African American that would become part of that. But still, the predominant influence, the Prince Hall Freemasons. Not saying this, but it's just, it was being, it was being pushed very hard. It was very, it was being pushed. So, being that it was being pushed not by the black, but by the whites. And then they were pushing it through the blacks. That's what made it predominant. And so when it comes, so this is the reason why when they talk about Gnosticism, when you hear somebody say, "Nah, it ain't like it," they didn't know. See, the whites had education, the blacks didn't. The black / African American didn't. They knew about it because just like you read the dictionary, it's in the dictionary. What's it, Webster's? Yeah, Webster's. Webster's dictionary. They knew about it. It's in the dictionary. It's in the dictionary. And so they knew about it. But trying to push it, it wasn't that easy. But they knew about it. So the next thing that became a little more easier to push, because it wasn't, you couldn't push that Gnostic anymore. See, in ancient time, like in the 1st century, what did they use violence? What did they do? They martyred. Many Christians were martyred. All the way up to the 3rd century, many Catholic / Christians have been martyred. So during that period of time, in their land, in that part of the world at that time, Because who was in power? The Romans. The Romans were in power. The Romans had a whole lot of land under their control. So during that period of time, that ideology, Gnostic, it was a lot, but one of the things that they used was violence. They used violence to instill fear. They used fear. But what they didn't see, that it was Jews. Then you had a lot of Jewish Christians who converted to be Catholics. And then later on the word Christian came along to be a Catholic. But during that period of time, because you had all this philosophy being talked about too. Yeah, this stuff being talked about. What you call a Gnostic, the people knew about, it was some people walking around who called themselves a Gnostic. So when we talk about people being Jews, just specifically Jews, being a Jew, it was a lot of people who were Jews. A lot. It was pretty prevalent. Now the Jews, because of the Romans, had to face, they were facing persecution too. It was some persecution. We read about it, historical article, information. We know that it was some things that the Jews didn't want to be up under the Romans. So they were, it was like they were resisting. There was Jewish resistance to Roman occupation and Roman rule. And Christian, Catholic. But the Jewish Christians, what they call Jewish Christians, a lot of Jewish Christians converted from Judaism, became Catholics. Now some of the teachings from the Jews was included in, about the Messiah. Who is the Messiah? Many people believe, that Jesus Christ, that he was the Messiah. Now, that's what all this Jewish Christian, mainly, who is the Messiah? Many Jews didn't believe that the one we talking about is the Messiah. Many Jews did. So they became, but they believed that that person was the Messiah, and they continued with their Jewish traditions, the Jewish Catholic Christians. And eventually, that's the reason why you read your Bible, like in the book of Acts, you read about some of the things, circumcision and so on. We ain't got, but we're still talking about this Gnostic stuff. So, the martyrdom, it wasn't just necessarily that the pagan Romans, but it was what the Gnostics. And so it was a lot of martyrdom. All the way up until what? The 3rd century, when Constantine converted and became a Catholic. That ended the martyrdom. And so all the people converted, many people, because of Constantine's conversion, many people converted to be a Catholic. To be a Catholic. Now, so this influence about Gnostic, that's the reason why people know about it, but trying to propagate it, trying to get people to be a. You see how you got out, and then later on you got Islam came along, doing in that part of the world, trying to say a person is a Gnostic. It's just specific. You can. And then various places around the world, it's kind of hard to say that a person. I mean, then later on, we kind of just going on through history. Think about India and all. There's a lot of Hindus, 1 billion of them, in India right now. Just in India. Because there's 1 billion people in India. And the predominant faith is Hinduism. And then you got to break down all them other little religions affiliated or, related to in that world, in that part of the world. Then you still got Islam, like over in Pakistan, and we going through, but we see the world today. But still, even during that period, the world trying to say somebody about something like that, and I think they got Manichaeism. It ain't that. In numbers, it's not no real. A lot of people that's no Manichaeans. Then you got all this, like in China, for instance, Confucianism. Irregardless of the communists, Marxists, all that stuff, in China, and even in just say, China, Mongolia, and then you got like the Koreas, North and South Korea, and then you got Japan, and then you got the Pacific Islands, the Polynesian people. People still have their customs and cultures, irregardless about communism or Marxism or about the economy, about capitalism, irregardless of the economy. The people have they hold on to their culture, their customs that's been passed down. They've been passed down. All this stuff about the economy came all the way up. All this stuff about economics and about all this stuff. We'll just say that's modern. From the first, let's just say that from the first century on up. That's what we talking about. When you start talking about before the first century, back in the BC. See, these people's the culture and the customs from before the first century. Before the first century. Those cultures and customs have been passed down all the way up to today. All over the world. We'll say this about any and everybody on the earth. The culture and the customs of the people on this planet have been passed down from BC. Because many people, let's not forget, the reason why a lot of people live where they are today, people didn't fight wars like, and then have all these displaced people in that way. People didn't live that way. Come on, use your common sense. People were really just, now if you want to talk about people migrating, we can bring that up, but we will say this. We know that many people have been placed in, they've been living in where they living today. You go past the first century. We go past the first century. Because people ain't already, they haven't always had these developed weapons to fight wars. Let's don't forget that. This is the reason why. If you want to talk about people fighting in wars, people didn't fight that way. It took time for people to develop. Talking about making a spear. We go all the way back talking about the hunter-gatherers then. We're talking about the hunter-gatherers. People didn't live that way. So don't have your brain always when we talk about things and then you look at things from today's point. We're talking about the hunter-gatherers. Who on this planet ain't never been a hunter or a gatherer? Pretty much everybody. Any and everybody on this planet was a hunter or a gatherer. Now, talking about this Gnostic stuff. See, this is what we were talking about. See, Plato, people were talking about God and all this before Plato. Before him. Because Socrates was his teacher. Socrates was his teacher. So they had been talking about this stuff for a long time. Then it came all the way up to, by the time it got to him, and he been taught in whatever, in the school where he was taught by Socrates. And then after being taught by Socrates, Plato wrote a book about the demiurge based on what he had been taught about the demiurge. And what he said about the demiurge was that the demiurge was a good God, a benevolent God.
His own books, the Timaeus. And Aristotle holds his book, the Ethics. And both of those books represent the bar meaning son, son of Timaeus. And he was blind. Presumably because he was blind, he couldn't get a job.
This fact was reported by Plato in his dialogue with Timaeus.
It turns out that God does not exist. On Platonism, there may be a demiurge, such as is featured in Plato's
argues for rule by a philosopher king instead of democracy, and Timaeus, in which Socrates talks about the nature of
Holds one of his own books, the Timaeus.
And Aristotle holds his book, the Ethics.
And both of those books represent the contrast son of Timaeus, bar meaning son, son of Timaeus. And he was blind. Presumably because he was blind, he couldn't get a job.
This fact was reported by Plato in his dialogue with Timaeus.
It turns out that God does not exist. On Platonism, there may be a demiurge, such as is featured in Plato's
argues for rule by a philosopher king instead of democracy, and Timaeus, in which Socrates talks about the nature of
So like I said, you tried to lie. You tried to make it sound like you were gonna get away with this when they found the Nagamon library. See, this is how you know that. See, the people, slavery, blacks / African Americans denied education, but the whites, they knew about it. But like I said, trying to go around trying to push all that, it's. And then think about the time and the period. There's a lot of other stuff that was going on. So trying to promote that kind of stuff, it's kind of hard because people were just, the white people couldn't even get, they couldn't even listen to each other because there was so much. Think of the Civil War. There was a lot going on. Think about it. Once you try to get the 13 colonies, the Protestants came over. And then trying to build a nation. Then you had the Revolutionary War. So trying to push, it's kind of, and then you got all this Freemasonry. See, stuff was already in Europe, and then the people in Europe came over. So you had all this Freemasonry. They were pushing that, but they knew about it. They knew about this Gnostic stuff. Trying to talk to each other about it. Then you got the Age of Enlightenment coming around, during the during that period of time. See, it's always something that's coming up to take people away from. They knew about it. Then the people in Europe came over to America. See, they knew about it. Just like the dictionary, the Webster's Dictionary. They knew about it. The demiurge, they know about it. Just like the occult. See, it's always something else that they can push. Esoteric. The occult. So they pushed that hard. Once the blacks came over, slaves, based on fear, talking about vampires, talking about a man going around with fangs in his mouth, going around biting people, sucking your blood. Then this man gonna turn into a bat because the bats do the same thing. They'll bite some a person or something and get the blood. The bat. And then you got this werewolf. See, this occult stuff. So see, they can push it though, based on fear. And you got all these black / African Americans who were slaves, already scared of the white people. Because they gonna keep, because the white people gonna keep, so they can push fear based on fear. The occult, voodoo, Santeria, based on fear. See, they can push that. They can push it. The vampire. And then what's the other? What's the other? The money. Talking about people coming out the graveyard. See, you can push that. But trying to push that Gnostic stuff, it's kind of hard to push that. But just pushing something about fear, talking about somebody gonna bite you, and then you gonna, cause by that time, the black / African American who was slaves, the first group they came up, they had already died. So the children, the grandchildren, great grandchildren, you can push this fear now. Because you ain't got no education, so you can't read no dictionary or nothing. You ain't got no education. All they got to do is just scare you. Make you afraid. Voodoo. Just make you afraid. Wait till nighttime. But see, they can push that. Then after the Civil War, you were free. Then the Freedmen's Bureau and the American Missionary Society going around trying to give you education. Still based on fear, but then what changed? See, the white people had to change their tactic. The Ku Klux Klan. Instead of making you scared through voodoo and all this occult with the vampire and the werewolf, talking about a werewolf, a half man and half wolf running around trying to kill people. See, instead of trying to make you scared that way, the white people just put on some sheets, some white sheets, and burn the cross, and just go around riding around on horses and just kill you, terrorize you. It ain't no difference about no religion, nothing. They just kill you. They just drag you out and hang you on and lynch you. There wasn't no worry about no religion or nothing. They just kill you. Men, women, and children. Didn't make no difference. Just kill you. Just kill you. Then you come all the way up to the early 1900s. Because these historical black college universities that had been established by the Freedmen's Bureau and the American Missionary Society. You had students came straight off the plantation to all these historic black college universities. Now it's what? I think it's 3 of them. There were before. Cheyney University up there in Pennsylvania was the first historical black college university before the Civil War. Then there was like 2 more. I think it was 2 more. I can Google it. So don't worry about it. I can Google it. I can go watch a YouTube video. But I remember Cheyney University the first. But after the Civil War, the majority of your historical black college university came after the Civil War because of the Freedmen's Bureau and the American Missionary Society. But trying to make you scared with that occult. Because see, you start becoming more educated. Now see, that occult stuff, this is how you know that they were pushing it. When you see these black exploitation movies in the 1950s and 1960s, if you didn't know about it, you wouldn't understand what they was talking about. Like Blackula, for example. But it was some more voodoo movies about voodoo. What's the other? Sugar Hill. Sugar Hill was another one about voodoo. And then some of these other movies, they were allude because there was a lot of white people making movies about the occult. If you didn't know about it, you wouldn't know what you was watching. But that's how prevalent voodoo and the occult was with all these vampires and werewolves. If you didn't know about it, they would have never made the movie because you wouldn't have any idea what they were talking about. And you most certainly weren't going to spend your money on going to watch something that you yourself didn't know about. So you knew about it. That's how prevalent the occult was amongst the black / African Americans. Because they were pushing it. It was being pushed. And you knew about it. It wasn't just the Ku Klux Klan. But you knew about the occult. Because it was being pushed. But look at today. This is how you know. Compare 1960 to today, 2024. Do you see anybody talking about vampires? Do you see anybody talking about the werewolf? You don't see it. Because they can't push it. You can't push it. In today's society, they pushing rap music. That's what they pushing. See, nothing that you do, if you ain't, that's what they pushing today. They ain't even worried about funk music no more. You know, like jazz. Think about it. During the ragtime, all these different musical genres, the blues is still prevalent today. Because what? The blues itself, and then R&B, rhythm and blues. The blues still standing on its own. You can turn on WDIA, and then by WDIA, you got iHeartRadio, you got the internet, because people way over in another country can listen to WDIA. So the blues can stand on its own. It don't need R&B. The blues can stand on its own. Just like soul music. Soul music don't need anybody else. Soul music can stand on its own. The people that look, they love to listen to soul music, what they call it, neo soul. It can stand on its own. Because people all over the world can listen. It's not, like in the 50s and the 40s, music, when you listen to the radio, the airwaves didn't go that far. That's it. If you weren't living in that locality, trying to listen to the radio, like country music, people. But now, you including television, you can stream it. You got what they got, what they call it, Spotify, and all these different ways, because of advances and progress. The radio is not limited. That's the point. The radio is not limited as it was in the past. So again, whatever genre of music you like, you can like funk music. Funk music can still be funk music. You don't have to incorporate anybody else because people all over the world, the audience has broadened. People don't look the same. If you say funk music, you'll be thinking black / African Americans here in the United States of America. But the music itself has expanded because the World Wide Web, and it's not limited. The airwaves are not limited to just your locality. So the audience has expanded. That's what it means. It expanded. FM and AM is not limited. It's not limited. Gospel music, no matter what kind of music it is. It can be classical music. People, in your mind, you be like, oh man, who's going to sit there and listen to some elevator music? But, that's your mind. But people all over the world, it's world. It's the world. People all over the world listen to classical music. They do. You know, but like we was talking about, you know, when we talk about stuff that's being pushed, the occult was being pushed. It was being pushed. But you see today, you can't push it. You can't get people to, and you know, to as a way of, you know, as a belief system. People ain't finna sit up there and say that I'm an occultist. They don't, you know, you can try that. You can, you know, individuals, but on a broad scale, it ain't gonna grasp. It ain't gonna, you know, it's not gonna catch hold. It ain't gonna catch hold. And so this stuff about the vampire, the werewolf, people be like, "Oh man, come on, man, ain't no better," you know. That's the reaction you'll get. Ain't no better talking about no, you know. But there was a period of time, the late 1800s, the early, in amongst the black slash era, there's superstition. There's superstitious way of thinking. It was very prevalent, based on fear. Based on fear. It's very prevalent because, I mean, let's think about it. Fear is something that people can relate to. People can relate to being afraid or being scared. It comes in a variety of forms. Like I say, it ain't got to be the vampires and the werewolves no more. You know? You go to college and university, I mean, hazing. Little boys and little girls go to school, in elementary school, junior high school, bullying. You know? But when you start talking about this Gnostic stuff, see, it's based on fear. See, all this gangsterism, mobsters, you know, gangsters and mobsters in the community that you live in, that's something that was being pushed. The gangsters and the mobsters. They were pushing it. After the Civil War, in some of these northern cities, like in the Northeast, like New York City and, you know, New Jersey, the state of New Jersey. See, when you talk about the Civil War, you talk about the black / African Americans that were living in the southern states, concentrated in the southern states, including on the East Coast, like North and South Carolina and all them states that fought in the Confederacy, Virginia. Name all the states that fought in Georgia, Florida, that fought in the Civil War on the side of the Confederates, who were slave states. All the slave states on the Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, I think Maryland. But was it a West Virginia? When did West Virginia? Because you got Virginia, then West Virginia, whenever West Virginia became a state. Maryland, Delaware. All the states that fought on the side of the Confederates that were slave states. See, all these black / African Americans were concentrated in that area, in this area, the Confederate states. Then after the Civil War, blacks were still concentrated, trying to move around with the Ku Klux Klan, traveling. Talking about traveling, going somewhere, you get killed. You get killed. And talking about some women and children moving around, come on now. No, you wasn't going nowhere. You weren't going nowhere. With the Ku Klux Klan roaming around, no. If a man ain't saying, talking about women and children moving, no. You were pretty much, and then where you gonna go? You don't know how to read, right? What you mean? Where you gonna go? You don't know where you're going. You don't even know where you at because you don't know how to read. So that the whole idea. But see, in the northern states, it was black. You had free blacks already living in, like, New York State, Connecticut, Rhode Island, some of them places. Ohio, Pennsylvania, some places Some black / African Americans were already free. They were already free in some places. But it was something else. After the Civil War, it was something that became style. See, they already knew about this gangster and mobster stuff. But it was something that started becoming more and more prevalent. See, all this stuff about the cowboy and all this stuff, But when you start getting to the 1900s, it really started becoming more and more prevalent. This gangster, mobster, the criminals, the people robbing banks and, committing all them type of crimes. The bank robbers and, robbing the stagecoach and all that. It really started becoming more and more prevalent. Then, with television and all this, after Prohibition, during Prohibition, gangsters, mobsters. The policy up there in Chicago. Mushmouth Johnson. The policy. Being a gangster and a mobster. They push that. Even today, they still push it. And see, that's what got that Gnostic stuff going. See, they couldn't push it. But after World War II, when they found that Nagamon library, they tried to push it. And how did they push it? On the streets. With this gangster mobster stuff. And see, you have to remember too, with the colleges and universities, with the sorority, and then the fraternity, the fraternity first, and then the sorority, all that hazing. See, that's all this is. Pushing this gangster mobster. That's all they were pushing. To be a gangster mobster. On the college and university campus. And see, a lot of, like I said, a lot of black / African Americans in the northern cities, living in them cities, on the streets. Just like in New York City, what they call them, the 5 Points Gang and all. See, the Europeans came over with this stuff. Being a gangster, a mob, the gang, the mob. Then some more immigrants came over behind the Protestants. You had more Catholics started coming. And Catholics ain't just the Latins. There's a lot of Germans that were Catholics. German-speaking people, like over in England and Scotland and Wales and all. There's a lot of Catholics. But in Germany itself, there's a lot of Catholics. Switzerland, Austria, there's a lot of Catholics. So they came over too. They came over from the Netherlands and all that. It ain't just the Latins, the French and the Spaniards and the Portuguese and the Italians, like they doing the movie. They not the only Catholics. And then think about all them East European, all them Eastern Orthodox Catholics. They Catholics. In Russia, in Eastern Europe, they're Catholics, predominant. Them the ones who came over. And so all this gangster mobster in the city, in the urban cities, they push it. They were pushing it. But amongst the black / African Americans, in order for you to push something, so you had more black / African American in the northern city who were already free. Some had gotten education. But in the South, the Ku Klux Klan was terrorizing black / all the way up to the 60s, in the 70s. Being terrorized by the Ku Klux Klan. So trying to push that gangster mobster stuff, it's really kind of The environment wasn't, you just couldn't, you couldn't do that. Now some, local, guys might be, the numbers thing, but it really wasn't just, you really just couldn't, you know what I'm saying? Because the economy was still mostly sharecropping and agriculture. When you come to getting a job and all, it was mostly agriculture in the South. Because industrialization didn't come until recently. But mostly in the southern states, it was mostly agriculture. Most black / African Americans were working on the fields in the early 1900s, all the way up to then after World War II. After World War II, started becoming more, industry started coming. Different, but trying to push that Gnostic stuff, it was after World War II when they found that Nagamon library. They found that Nagamon library. But how you gonna push it? How you gonna push it? And that's how they pushed it. On the streets, in the neighborhood, the sororities and the fraternities. People wouldn't listen to, that's another thing about the black / African American who was in the South. Who you listened to because you had the civil rights movement. And this was one of the biggest things about after World War II was the civil rights movement and who you listening to. People got into fights about listening to this person or that person, who all these black / African Americans were listening to. See, it was becoming a big problem. People were fighting against each other. But how you gonna push this Gnostic stuff? That's how they did it. The sorority and the fraternity. Because if you ain't got no education, who gonna listen to you? So it had to be somebody with some education to get people to listen. The sorority and the fraternity going around lying. They're going around lying about Gnostic. But that whites, they've been knowing about Gnostic. That ain't nothing new. But because you were denied education, being black / African American, you ain't know nothing. But the sorority and fraternity, and you were denied, you couldn't even go to the University of Memphis or University of Mississippi or University of Arkansas, the predominant white schools. You couldn't go there. You couldn't go there. Now, don't ask me about the Bole Society. Don't ask me how over at these, what they call these Ivy League schools, some of these black / African Americans was going to some of these schools. The ones who started Alpha, what they call it, Alpha, Kappa Alpha, whatever it was, But it was a group of black students at Cornell University. Now I don't know where they came from. The Bole Society, they started a fraternity. It wasn't a collegiate fraternity, but it's just a fraternity, amongst professionals, black professionals who had already graduated college, like doctors and dentists, and a professional fraternity for black men. The Bole Society, Omega Phi Phi, whatever. But the point, still, you're going to push this Gnostic stuff they found in Nagamon Library. Not that the Nagamon Library is important. The Catholic Church already refuted and already proved that Gnosticism was a heresy. And then talking about the demiurge, and Plato had already wrote his book. We're talking about before Jesus Christ. Plato had already wrote his book. And then the Neoplatonists, You know, them Plato's students came behind Plato after he had already wrote his book, the Timaeus, or Timaeus. He had wrote his book about talking about the demiurge. And then the Neoplatonists, the people at the college and university, they already know about the Neoplatonists. But because they found a Naggamah library, see, this you ain't find nothing. Some leftover Gnostic paper, you ain't find nothing. Did anybody got a pen? But amongst the black / African American, you trying to push this stuff, and how you gonna push it? The sorority and fraternity, going around uneducated black men and women / African American. You were lying. You lied to these people. That's what you did. You lied. You lied. Because again, the civil rights movement after 1945, after they discovered that stuff, the civil rights movement was coming up in the 50s, all through the 50s. Then get to the 60s. The civil rights movement. And who you gonna listen to? You know? The 50s and the 60s. And then you trying to push this Gnostic stuff. You know, trying to push that Gnostic stuff. Like we were talking about Neoplatonism. Now see, that what I See, Plotinus was Neoplatonist. He did some writing against the Gnostics, or against those that affirm the creator of the cosmos and the cosmos itself to be evil. So, can't disagree, because I'm going to be against Nazi no matter what, because I know the Catholic Church already refuted Nazism, so it don't make no difference about what no Nazi got to say. So like I say, I agree. I'm gonna be against Nazi all the time, because the Catholic Church already refuted Nazism. So, but what Plotinus did, he wrote, he did some writing himself, and that's what it was. It was however you pronounce the Enneads.
Aniad or Anid. Aniad. Anid. 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 Aniad or Anid. Aniad. Anid.
So that was pronunciation of the writing that Plotinus had done is Enid or Aniad. That was the pronunciation. But against Gnostics. That's what it means. And this was back in the 30th century. Because when the Neoplatonists came about, it was because see, Plotinus had a teacher, what's his name, Satyrs. Oh. And so, like I said, so when Plotinus did his work, it was done by Plotinus, Enads or Enneads. It was written by Plotinus. It was against Gnostics, or against those that affirm the creator of the cosmos and the cosmos itself to be evil. And so now Plotinus' teacher, what's his name? Emmanuel Sacus was the founder of Neoplatonism. See, Plotinus didn't started. It was him and his teacher that founded, Neoplatonism. But see, they had did this way back in the 3rd century. So when you start talking about this Nagamon library, you ain't talking about nothing. Because it's going to still be talking about this demiurge, and you ain't talking about nothing. You lying. You've been lying the whole time. And then the Catholic Church already refuted Gnosticism. Then St. Athanasius, the Bishop of Alexandria in the 3rd century, had really tried to destroy the Gnostic theologian right, which he did. Him and the other bishops in the Catholic Church, they really did. They had went around and collected all that Gnostic theologian right and destroyed it. So I'm saying the same thing that Plotinus and his teacher said. I'm against Gnostics. Now, this is the Catholic Church, and it's a decree against communism. But there are other things that the Catholic Church has said about the things like socialism, communism, and Marxism. But this is a decree against communism. Now it says here, and let me read this little statement here. It says in the background, see, opposition to socialism and communism and Catholic social teaching had already been expressed in the teachings of popes since the encyclicals Nostis et Nobiscum into Quantum Cura. Now see, that was in 1849. The encyclicals Nostis et Nobiscum, that was in 1849. Then the Quantum Cura in 1864, and the Rerum Novorum 1891. Now, this is the Catechism of the Catholic Church. And this is the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. And what the church says about all this socialism and communism and Marxism and totalitarian and capitalism. This is the Catechism of the Catholic Church. And so that would the church's social teaching comprised a body of doctrine which is articulated as the church interprets events in the course of history with the assistance of the Holy Spirit in the light of the whole of what has been revealed by Jesus Christ. This teaching can be more easily accepted by men of good will, the more the faithful let themselves be guided by it. The church's social teaching proposes principles for reflection. It provides criteria for judgment. It gives guidance. It gives guidelines for action. Any system in which social relationships are determined entirely by economic factors is contrary to the nature of the human person and his acts. A theory that makes profit the exclusive norm and ultimate end of economic activity is morally unacceptable. The disordered desire for money cannot but produce perverse effects. It is one of the causes of the many conflicts which disturb the social order. A system that subordinates the basic rights of individuals and of groups to the collective organization of production is contrary to human dignity. Every practice that reduces persons to nothing more than a means of profit enslaves man, leads to idolizing money, and contributes to the spread of atheism. You cannot serve God and mammon. The church has rejected the totalitarian and atheistic ideologies associated in modern time with communism or socialism. She has likewise refused to accept in the practice of capitalism individualism and the absolute primacy of the law of the marketplace over human labor. Regulating the economy solely by centralized planning perverts the basis of social bonds. Regulating it solely by the law of the marketplace fails social justice. For there are many human needs which cannot be satisfied by the market. Reasonable regulation of the marketplace and economic initiatives in keeping with a just hierarchy of values and a view to the common good is to be commended. That's Catholic social teaching. So all this stuff about the economy, capitalism, and all this, all this stuff about socialism, communism, Marxism, totalitarianism, the Catholic social teaching, the United States Conference of Social Catholic Bishops, the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Now I'm gonna get ready to end today's video. I just wanted to make, I wanted to include Dr. Kwame Ture, a man who contributed to Black/African Americans being able to get past all this bigotry and prejudice and racism, and be able to live as human beings, not just here in America, but all over the world. And it was because he was one of many who contributed to our advancing, progressing. And so, want to take the things that this man taught and to continue to apply. Now, all this stuff about the economy, I don't never negate the Catholic Church position when it comes to capitalism and all this socialism, communism, Marxism, totalitarianism, and things of this nature. So because that's one area you can't take in and everything and just let everything be just about the economy. Because any and everything is not just about the economy. And so, like I said, I want to acknowledge and recognize the contributions that Dr. Kwame Ture made to the advancing and progressing of Black/African American or people of African lineage, heritage, ancestry, or whatever. Because Blacks, Africans are all over the world. You got people that speak many languages. People classified by languages, and people classified by their clan, their tribe. Because as today the African continent, you have all these various nations, which is a good thing. One of the things that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah had envisioned through scientific socialism is a United States of Africa. And what you see today, it went from the Organization of African Unity to what you see today is the African Union. And all people of African ancestry, lineage, heritage, all Africans. And not just the African Union, also the United Nations. Let me make sure, don't leave out the United Nations, because the majority of all African nations that are members of the African Union are members of the United Nations. And the African Union is part of, is recognized by the United Nations. All these regional organizations around the world are recognized, acknowledged by the United Nations. And so, like I said, Dr. Kwame Ture, a student of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and also Sekou Toure, who's the president of Guinea, not the Ivory Coast, but the president of Guinea, African nation of Guinea. But like I said, I just, because this man, Dr. Kwame Ture, he dedicated his life to trying to use his abilities to help all people, all human beings, but specifically people of African ancestry or lineage, heritage, whatever. And so, but I'm gonna get ready to end today's video. And you know, today, you know, the time, you know, so that's the reason why when I made my video today, I really want just trying to do, you know, to do the things that I did. And again, you know, all that lying about Gnosticism and all that stuff, you know, and you know, Dr. Kwame Ture, you know, he was a member of the All African People's Revolutionary Party, and like I said, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, not just the African Union, but also the All African People's Revolutionary Party. And so, you know, but all that dumb stuff, trying to lie about Gnosticism and all that. Like I said, I'm saying this. I'm just gonna reiterate and concur with Plotinus, you know, because I'm against Gnostics. So, you know, Plotinus against Gnostics. I'm against Gnostics too. You know. See, it's all about time. It's all about time. See, that's reason why I don't, you know. See, you want to lie and all that. See, time. See, the time. You ain't getting away with nothing. You ain't getting away with nothing. So, time. Again, my name is Eric D. Johnson, also on BrightShine. I live right here in the city of Memphis, in the county of Stevenson, state of Tennessee. Thank all my family, my support for your continued support. I always want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, the Son of God, for all the blessing and guidance He provides all with. And you take care of yourself, and wish each and every one of you the very best.